them to go on the cameras, please. Yeah. Connor, over to you.
Johannes, good to see you. Let's start with Anis Ben Slimani. Where's he in terms of his fitness? We obviously saw him on New Year's Day in a protective boot, so as bad as maybe that looked, or a little bit better?
It's an ankle ligament injury, so it is somewhere in between, or from 4 weeks to probably 6 weeks. So if everything goes well, then 4 weeks, and if he needs a little bit more time, then 6 weeks. So in between that, probably.
It's obviously a blow for him, I'm sure, because it felt like he was getting into a nice
yeah.
But also for you, because it's not often you've had those four midfielders available.
No.
It seems like when they become available, one of them drops out.
Yeah, it seems like it's not for us to have them all available at the same time. So it's good we have 4 and 3 midfield positions. So at least we have enough to cover that. No, it's how it is, and of course there's a risk when you play a lot of games in a row, and they come without too much restitution and recovery in between them. So that's how it is. I think what also of course hurts us a little bit is that Gabriel Forsyth is unavailable, and Liam Gibbs is unavailable, and Lungi is unavailable. So we are down to the 3 guys, and they are ready to go.
Good, it's a good job they are. In terms of, and I was going to ask you about Sorensen actually.
Yeah.
I think you said illness, didn't you? Is that sort of like a flu sort of thing?
Yeah, it is, and then unfortunately also some calf issues that we found out first time that he was actually about to be okay again. Then he was in the building and about to do some running, and then he felt some pain in his calf, and that was unfortunately a minor injury, not something too much, but still something that will keep him out for a couple of weeks, I think.
Yeah, it's going to test those midfielders, isn't it? In terms of what you said, they're going to have to go again. It's already been a busy period in some games. Yeah,
and it's not an easy position for us because it requires a lot of running and a lot of pressing activity as well, which is a big part of our game. So we have to find the moments in the game tomorrow where we can also rest a little bit with the ball, and we can be, or I hope at least we can do more passes in more moments and kill the intensity just a little bit, so we can speed it up and slow it down and speed it up and slow it down. That would be ideal for us.
Beyond the midfield area, is there any other sort of fresh concerns within your squad? No. Brad Hills is back again. He was ill. I think it's... On Borja as well, I guess as we sit here today, is he still available for tomorrow? Is there a little bit more clarity that you've got on that?
I expect that because what we heard latest was that we will get some kind of information today. So I think we probably will. We haven't had it yet, so... and I think also based on the fact that we don't have anything yet, he will be available for the game tomorrow, because I think it will be unrealistic for us to reply with an answer in time for tomorrow. So I think he will be available. Yeah.
And obviously we'll come on to what you have done in the window in a minute, but with those midfield issues, with Anis now looking at a period out, does that change your thinking in terms of the market? Are you going to have to look at that midfield area now?
We are looking at the midfield area, but I think I don't think we are there to react based on injuries or suspensions. I think this is just a time of the season we have to handle. Unfortunately for us, we've tried it before so far this season, and we hope that we can do a little bit better than last time we had some injury issues. Hopefully we have learned just a little bit from it, and the guys are ready to go again. But I don't think we should do something based on the fact that injuries and suspensions. But if the right player comes up and the right timing is there for us, then I think we can do something, because of course it is an area of the pitch where we are still looking, and also summer we need to be aware that we probably have to bring in a midfielder.
Let's ask you about one you have done then, Lewis Dobbin. How pleased are you to get that one over the line?
Really pleased, because I think he's a player that can give us a little bit a different style up front. He can cover all the 3 positions that we play with. He can even play as a 9 for us. He's a good runner. He's good at running in behind. He has a good timing in his movements. So I think he gives us a little bit a different characteristics to some of the other players, which is good for us. He can be a starter for us. He can be a player that comes on from the bench. So I think it's great for the team and for us.
I'm sure supporters would have been looking into him and perhaps what he did at West Brom. Obviously, one start there, quite limited in terms of the game time he got. Because I think some of the wide players were performing quite well.
Yeah.
people do look at goals and assists and maybe the fact that he didn't pick up any during what was obviously quite a difficult period for him. So what have you seen in him, his profile and in terms of the data that made him a good fit for you guys?
Yeah, but I think when we looked at him, especially physically, we saw that his sprint numbers, his intensity in terms of high speed running, his running capacity in general was at a high level, and he's up there with some of the best performing players in the league in terms of the physical numbers, which is a big part of the way that we play. And I think it actually has become more and more obvious to us as the season has evolved for us that, you know, the demands we put on the front players for us is, especially defensively, also some big ones. So they need to be able to do that, and he's up there. So his numbers are really, really good in terms of that. Then of course he's a young player, and he's still there where he has been on the highest level in this country, but probably haven't taken the step into be a consistent player on that level. And we of course here to support him and help him to do that, because we want him to do it with us, and then next step in his career can be the next step we talk about. So of course there will always be some areas where he needs to improve, and that's the reason why he's here. Because if he was up here with some of the best strikers in the world, we would probably not be talking about him right now. So different in some areas, but I think what he brings in terms of his physical performances, then really, really good, and also the fact that we can use him already tomorrow if you want.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I think you spoke at the last press conference about maybe how you felt this group needed a bit more pace.
Yeah.
Who could run in behind. And
yeah.
From what you're saying, it sounds like he is
yeah.
the type, someone that will maybe stretch the line as opposed to perhaps coming looking for the ball, which as you said, you've got a lot of players already.
Yeah, and of course we need to see if we can add more goals to his account, so he needs to be more threat with assists and goals. But I think his running will just open up even more space for some of our offensive players, and we can do our movements and our patterns because of that. So it gives us a lot, but of course he's here to work, and he's here to improve as well, and we are more than ready to help him.
I know you said you see him sort of in all of those three positions. Is there one in particular that you feel he can make a real impact?
I think he's best when he starts on the left, when he can dribble in and he can finish with his right foot. But I think he's a threat also when he's played as a 9, because when he can be on that last line and he can run down the channels in both sides. The back line, they need to have a certain awareness on him. They need to sometimes drop off a little bit, and that creates space in front of them. And then some of our other players, our 10 positions, our pocket players, they can start to develop the game from those positions. And of course, if the back line is still too high, then he can run in behind that we can pass him. So I think it creates a good dimension to our game, and a dimension that we haven't really had so far this season.
And just last one on him, but fitness-wise, he's in a position where he's ready just to be dropped in.
Yeah, he'll be in the squad tomorrow. Yeah.
Good stuff. Ashley Barnes, then let's sort of speak about him, because obviously we saw him play on Wednesday, and I think by yesterday quite late he'd gone. So just talk us through sort of the timeline of events and how that all unfolded from the full-time whistle at Kenilworth Road to obviously his departure yesterday.
Yeah, so it's again back to what I've said a couple of times now, that we sit with the players where we can see that there's a potential situation where they can go somewhere else, or there can be a contract situation here where it can be playing time, it can be something third or fourth. But we sat with him, of course, obviously, and he I think he actually wanted to stay here, but of course he wanted a little bit more clarity on game time and what he could expect and so on. And we gave him that, and I think based on that he wanted to see if he can be more like a starting 11 player every week, another place than here. And it was, I think it's fine for us. I think, like I said also after the game in Luton, where from a selfish perspective and from a club perspective, we probably could use him, and we will also, as we saw against Luton. But from his perspective, and also if we have to accept his situation, then his contract runs out this summer, and for him to find a club where he potentially can stay for more seasons, then I think we have to accept and respect that.
Yeah, I guess the fact it's Burnley probably made it extra emotional.
Yeah.
Just talk to us a little bit about the impact that he's had behind the scenes since you've been in charge. So I think a lot of obviously fans only see what happens on the pitch, and they will only see him in those situations. And obviously he's had an injury, but you speak to any of the players, and I know you've referenced before about his character and what he's brought to it. So What's he done for this group? What sort of role has he played behind the scenes that maybe people haven't played?
Yeah, but I think there's two things. I think first of all, just his energy and his personality. He brings a lot, also fun stuff to the dressing room and just to the environment that we have here. And then second of all, where some of the players, as we've talked about a lot, are of course still quite young, and I think it was maybe 40-50% of our squad. I don't think they really knew what was coming when you go to Luton away and you play that game and you play at that stadium and that ground and that pitch and so on. And then it's of course important to have some players where they exactly know what it's all about. They can talk about it, but they can also show when they come on what is about to play a game like that. And he's one of them. So in terms of that, he was important.
And obviously in terms of what's next and the market as it currently stands, you've lost the striker. Will you be going back in and looking for another striker? How does that dynamic work? Do you go and look to replace him now?
I don't think specifically we're going to replace him, but we are looking at players in the front line. We are looking at players. It can still be a winger. It can also be a more central position. But of course, we are looking at offensive players to the team. And I think again, just going back to the strategy, I think that one needs to be a player that we bring in on a long contract. So a player where he probably can get used to the country and the league with the first 6 months, and then really be a starting and a good player for us after summer, or can also be a different scenario. You never know, but we are looking for players, and if the right option is there, then we're ready to execute. But we don't do anything just to do it.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen you play. Obviously, Emmy played there as kind of
Yeah.
like a false nine.
Yeah, and he-
Yeah,
and he can.
cover in different
Yeah.
areas with that.
Yeah, which is fine for us, because I think O'Neill did well against Sunderland to hold some balls for us in some vital moments, and I think Amy can do the same. He's a little bit of a runner. He's good at moving just on the side of the centre backs and create some space and find the right timing to go in behind them. So I think we have different characteristics, and then of course, obviously for everyone, Josh will come back to the squad again. I think hopefully this will be the last championship game without Josh. Plan is that we can nice and easy build him into the team before the Brighton game next week, and then of course he can be fully ready after that. So he's of course also one we have to mention. It feels like a signing.
It does, and a good signing to
Yeah, definitely.
I'm sure that there will be some fans who maybe look at Josh, and not just this season but other seasons, to look at maybe his injury record.
Yeah.
Obviously Ante's played in a couple of positions as well, and maybe we'll feel that you're a little bit light in that area, but from what you've just explained, you feel pretty comfortable maybe with the options that you had while sort of looking to supplement that with.
Yeah, I do. Like I said, I'm comfortable with the players that we have already. But like I said, I think it's fair and it's probably also realistic to expect that we are looking at the offensive area of the pitch, and I'll not give any promises, but I think we are looking and we are seeing if we can find a right profile for the team to bring in now. But again, we don't do it if it's not the right one. That's also important to mention.
Yeah, cool. Away from sort of transfers, I wanted to ask you a bit about Shane Duffy, because obviously probably magnified the other night by his performance, but he's played more than any other, or more minutes than any other player under you this season, which, you know, I think in pre-season, I think you admitted this and he admitted this, as maybe both sides a little bit unsure as to how it would go. So, I mean, the impact that he's had has been pretty incredible, hasn't it? How impressed have you been by him and how well he's adapted to what you're trying to do, sort of your game?
I think I would actually go as far and say that it's a good story for the next time in the club here, for the next players and for the upcoming players, because it's a story that tells if you do your work every day here and if you perform on a consistent level, then you play no matter how old you are. And I think he has done that for the team. He's been supportive towards the strategy and the way of playing. He's been supportive towards the younger players, and he's been also holding a consistent level of performance himself, which is of course probably the best reason why he's playing so much as he is. So I think it's been a great season so far for him, and he's a big part of the group, because he's a leader coming from behind together with Angus in goal and Kenny on midfield, and it's so important for the team that we have those players. So yeah, I said a couple of times, we talk about young players a lot, but we need to have at least a handful of players where they have the experience in the league and they know how to deal with an away game in Luton.
Yeah, and it's well documented last year was difficult for him on the pitch and off the pitch as well.
Yeah.
Have you seen a real change? Obviously you weren't here last year, so it's maybe difficult to compare, but in terms of him, have you seen a real change in how he almost interacts with others? It is a young group, and I'm sure his role within that has probably changed a little bit. He's worn obviously the armband a few times. Yeah,
he has, and I think there's definitely some changes with him. I think without knowing exactly, then I think he enjoys his time here at the moment. I think he's in a good place where he's focused and he's also avoiding injuries, so he can just play and he can perform for us, which is, of course, a big thing for him. And then I think as a player, sometimes you arrive in that next step in your career where you find out that there's also something different and something else than just playing minutes and training. But then it comes into play that you can actually give back to some of the younger players. You can actually be a big voice in the dressing room. You can actually be a leader in many aspects of driving a culture and a strategy. And I think it's not like he's perfect in all those areas, but that's the next kind of work that can start with a little bit more experienced player and a work that has been started for us, because he's useful and he's doing well. And I think it also opened up his mind to that, you're not done just because you are 32 or 33 now. There's still, if you treat yourself well, there's still many years to go.
Final one before I ask you about the game tomorrow, but Marcelino as well, I wanted to ask you a bit about him and his development in the sort of first 6 months under you. Do you feel there's been a real development in his game, and what sort of specifically were the areas when you came in that you looked at him and felt that you could get stuck into, that you could change and coach and
yeah, I think when I watched him in some of the games from last season, I think he was still too inconsistent in his passing game. I think there was some fantastic passes, but then the next ones could be a mistake where you think that there should never be a mistake, and I think he's about to get rid of that. He can be still a little bit inconsistent in his positioning, and that's probably what we work on the most. So he has a clear understanding when he plays as a central or when he plays as either on the left or right midfield for us. We've played him as a 6, we've played him in the 10 positions as well. And I think it's probably the positioning we talk most about with him and show him clips on how to behave as a player when you cover a certain position, because everything you do as a player, all the other teammates, they need to be able to see what you're doing and then adjust their positions according to you. So you cannot just run all over the pitch and do whatever you want. You need to find that structure in the game, and I think he developed quite well in terms of that. And I think actually one of his better performances after his injury was Millwall at home, where he played as a 6, because it's not a easy role for us to cover, because you have to be an option every time the centre backs are on the ball. You have to be an option to progress the game for us, but you also have a big responsibility defensively. And it was first time he really did that for us, and I think he did well. But he can cover more positions. He's really, really aware on the information that we give him, and as everyone can see, when he's playing a more offensive role for us, just behind the strikers, he's a big threat from distance. So. So sometimes it's about taking the right decision to find the best possible position for him, because it's not always obvious.
Yeah, he needs to work on scoring tap-ins, doesn't he? He doesn't get too many.
It's not for him. It's not for him.
No, definitely not. Just a couple on the game there. I mean, Coventry, I guess the big one around them is the change of manager. Mark Robbins for such a period of time, now Frank Lampard. Have you seen in sort of your analysis and research into them real significant changes in terms of the way they play, or has it been sort of continuity so far?
Yeah, I think we just looked at when he took over and the changes and they have more ball possession, they have more passes. I think they're probably even more offensive in their approach, which also have given them some results where they score a lot of goals, but in some games they've also conceded some because they attack with a lot of players. So I think they are definitely on their way to being a team where the passing game means a lot to them, to find the right structure and the rhythm before they attack, and then they will always be a threat with the players they have out wide. They can dribble, they can take on our fullbacks, they can create 1v1 situations, dribble in and then cross to the back post is one of their main strategies offensively, which we have to be aware of, because that was also something we spoke about the last time we went to Coventry. So I think it's a good team. It's an interesting team. There's also some young players in the team. So I think if they're given time, then they can definitely be a team that will compete further on the season.
Would your expectation be perhaps a little bit more of an open game compared to what we saw earlier on?
Sometimes it can be a little bit difficult actually to predict, because two teams that won the ball can also be a tactical game. We are prepared for a game where our pressing game also needs to be really, really good, and we have to work as a collective unit in everything we do. And then, of course, like I mentioned before, we also need to be very good in our decisions on the ball sometimes to kill the tempo just a little bit before we can just accelerate the game again, and to make sure that we can rest a little bit more with the ball instead of high pressing.
Final one from me, but obviously 7 points from 9 over this burst of games, which I'm sure you'd have been really pleased with. How much is it now about consistency? Because we've seen bursts of runs.
That's what it's all about.
Throughout the season, so I guess that's the next challenge for your team. That's the next step that you want to see them take, sort of build a body of results.
That's what it's all about. I know exactly what the guys in here they can do when they are at their best, and when we top perform, we can be close to outstanding. But I've also seen when we are not outstanding and when we are the opposite. So it's so much about consistency. But again, like I said, that's also the part that takes time when it's such a young group, and they have to still get experiences in the league, and they have to get used to playing so many games, and especially the games away from home are difficult and are sometimes very different compared to the games that we play at home. So that's a big thing for us, and that's the thing that we definitely work on, because I have huge belief in the group of players that what we can do on our best days, it's fantastic football, but we have to make sure we can do it away from home, and we have to make sure that when we are not at our best, we can still get results, and that's a big but important step for us to take.
Good stuff. Thanks, Johannes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Connor. Go to the cameras off, please, and then Rob.